Welcome back to Bonanza Disc Golf. Round 2, how the West was won in second, 14 down. I shouldn't have spoiled it, but you're not gonna watch the other video first anyways. You're here already. I'm one stroke off the lead to Joe Revere, who's a legend in this region, Masters World Champion, and I'm tied with Joel Freeman. And that is a little bit of pressure that I'm really trying to not take into this round. Bag is staying the same, game plan is staying the same, unless we get to hole 15, and that's when I'm gonna first check scores, really try to not get that in my head, just go shot by shot. 15 after that, I'm gonna check scores, because 16 is eagleable, but I don't want to have to go for it. 17 is birdieable, but I don't want to have to go for it. And then 18 is a birdie. Everything, I'm trying to birdie everything except for 17, and I might try to eagle 16. So we'll decide at hole 15, game time, what that is. But really, I got kind of two main goals for today. One is just execute my game plan, play my round, and play shot by shot. Not trying to do anything crazy at all. It's a little windier right now, but that might die down in the middle of the afternoon when I tee off in about an hour. I've noticed I'm like a slow warm-upper, so I like to get here, throw some putts, watch some disc golf, throw some more putts, stretch out, get the hole one, and get ready to go.
So I'm teeing off third right after Joel Freeman. I'm deciding between my Star Destroyer, my Ricky 2-time, and my Calvin Destroyer, which you haven't seen me throw in a lot. That's because here we have a pretty strong headwind with a little bit of right to left. It's actually the first full throw of the day because there's not a really good warm-up area. So I'm trying to get dialed in my head, trying to take the pressure off and just put it close to the basket, wanting to start off with at least a par. Leaves my hand a little bit inside, but it should be a good shot no matter what.
Let's go!
My first tournament ace ever comes when I'm trailing one stroke to a couple 1030 rated players. Kind of nasty because we're going to see that everybody winds up birdieing this hole. So I'm tied for the lead after this hole, but we all know what can happen from aces. Definitely want to make sure that it doesn't, and I continue to play clean, but my adrenaline is going crazy at this point. So we're moving into hole number 2. It's 380 feet. I'm taking my Ricky Destroyer instead of my Echo Destroyer. It's a pretty straight right to left wind. So I know that because I have this adrenaline, I'm going to juice it pretty good. Put it on some hyzer and actually end up down tempoing a little bit because I thought that I was going to juice it so hard, and ends up on that hill, which is actually hazard. So I'll be putting from there for the par. Really not happy with how that went. Trying to think about the good in all of it, knowing that I can make this putt just outside the circle. Try to keep myself with a clean round, a clean tournament overall. Slight tail right to left, so I'm wanting to aim basically for the middle, maybe a little bit right side. Treating it more as a right to left than a tailwind. And I just hit the top of the cage. So we're going to take the first bogey of the tournament, unfortunately. Trying to be a little bit okay with that. Try not to just live in the stigma of ace equals bogey on the next hole, and move clean into hole number 3. Hole number 3 is a 318-foot par 3 on top of that mound. Yesterday, I put my Pathfinder straight into it, and today we have a tailwind. So I'm basically trying to throw the same shot, maybe just a slight bit more anhyzer, keep it low and drive it into the hill. I throw it a little bit high, unfortunately, and you're going to see a funny reaction from Joel, because he thought that I was ace running that one too. Did not quite mean to. Got a little bit high on it, unfortunately, and we're going to have a putt from the bottom of that hill for the birdie. Now, unfortunately here, I kind of wanted to give it a little bit of a half bend. You saw I got the height exactly right. I thought that it just kind of hit and sat, and I meant to throw that a little bit of Annie out of the hand. And that was honestly because Joel had putt and missed the putt. So I was thinking, hey, I can get that other stroke on him. I can go one up. And that is just me playing against other people instead of against myself in the course. So there I was really contemplating running that again and trying to save the par, but I did the culture thing and made a really poor layup. That's not the culture thing, just laying up in general, putting it in from actually outside the bullseye, unfortunately, for another bogey. So we go ace, bogey, bogey, and from here on out, let's play clean. Let's get birdies. I can get all these holes, just trying to get back in my own game. My emotions and adrenaline are still ridiculous from that ace. So that moves us into hole number 4, which is a 586-foot par 4. We have a pretty strong right to left, which is a little bit of headwind because you have to basically throw it right to get it over that mound. I throw my Ricky 2-time Destroyer on a really good line, just pump it out there. Didn't need to get too crazy with it. Didn't need to throw it 100%. Just a simple hyzer. It's going to leave me another simple hyzer more than likely with the zone. I'm reading on the rangefinder just about 220 feet if I remember correctly, and so I'm taking my zone, and because there is that mound to the left, I'm not really wanting to throw it on a forehand. I'd much rather take it on a backhand, even though the wind is pushing right to left. Just keep it low under the wind. End up throwing a really down-tempoed shot, and it just hits the top of the hill, and when it hits the top of the hill and then you can't see it anymore, you know it's probably a good shot. Leaves me inside of circle 1 with about a 15-20 foot look for the birdie. And this is honestly like the first part of the round that I'm having to really think about, because hole number 2, circle 2, kind of a difficult putt with a tap in. Hole number 3, should have just laid up. Unfortunately, I was really stupid and then just laid up and then made another one. And now's my first putt for birdie. and we're able to put it in from the straddle. Once again, I'm kind of putting whatever feels best, straddle or inline, and we take a birdie. We're back under par for the round after an ace on hole 4. So it's kind of the weirdest way to get 1 under through 4 holes, but hey, we're there. Moving on to hole number 5, a 273-foot par 3, which is just to the left of that pole. You have a mandatory, and it goes down the hill from there. It's a pretty direct headwind, so I figure I'm going to throw my Crystal Flex zone on a very similar line to yesterday, but because I still haven't trusted it too much on backhand into a headwind, on hyzer, I don't know how much it's going to flip. So I aim a little bit inside, thinking it'll flip it a little bit, but it's actually very resistant in the wind, and it just hits that tree, unfortunately, and leaves me with a 65-70 foot look for the birdie. Pretty solid bid, all things considered. It leaves me with about another 15 to 20 foot look. Definitely just need to continue working on putting. If you guys have been following the journey, you've known I've been doing a lot of practicing on my backhand form and not a lot of work on either forehand or on putting. I do not know how many times I've practiced putting in the last couple months, and it's a little embarrassing to say. So needless to say, that's the next thing that I'm really going to be intentional about working on as I move into the van again and start to travel for disc golf, trying to do that at least an hour a day in the putting. But hole number 5 is pretty interesting. It's a 273-foot par 3 with a triple mando, and in this tailwind, things can end up lifting. They can be a little bit squirrely, so I'm again trying to really punch through a hyzer with my origin and just throw it pretty nose down. End up with a decent shot, just a little bit high, unfortunately, and it's going to leave me just inside the circle on the long side. Was really happy to get through that, but reaction tells you everything. I thought about that shot. Again, about a 25 to 30 foot look. These should be super routine, and I definitely need to practice these both in the wind and because of the wind, because when it's getting windy, I'm not parking baskets, I'm putting them inside the circle. And because it was a headwind with a little bit of right to left, out of my hand, it felt decent. I had committed to it. That's what I wanted to do. But we hit the band, unfortunately, and can't capitalize on that birdie opportunity, which would have been the only one on the card. But we're trying not to think about that too much. Hole number 7 here is 340 feet downhill. I had thrown honor yesterday, but it's a slight head left to right. So I decided to disc all the way up to my Calvin Destroyer and just throw it on hyzer because it would reliably get down to the basket. And fortunately, 2 times in a row, I've thrown that Calvin Destroyer very, very well. Straight under the basket, looking great. And if you look again in the bottom left-hand corner, just like yesterday, we're tracking putting. So you're going to see neg 1 putting because I missed an inside the circle putt. I lose putting points for missing inside the circle, and I gain putting points back for making circle 2s. Basically trying to see that I make more circle 2s than I miss circle 1s. I was positive 1 yesterday. We're going to definitely try to make that happen again today. The wind is going to make it a little bit more difficult, but fortunately, these ones we don't really have to worry about very much as I tap in for another birdie. Hole number 8 is a 514-foot par 4, relatively simple forehand with a driver and a putter or approach disc. So I'm throwing my Ricky Destroyer again because it's a left-right wind, making sure that I keep it left. Get honestly a pretty good pump. I was one of the farther up the fairway, leaving me with a really simple, probably only about 150 feet in to look at the 3. Now that moves us into hole number 9. And luckily we are 3 down through the first 8, so we're wanting to make that 4 through 9. I think 4 and 4 in today's wind would be a pretty decent round. I'm trying really not to think about where Joel is at or where Joe is at, and luckily I have no idea where they're at this point, so pretty happy about that. I'm throwing my Echo Destroyer for the first time because as you can hear, it's a ripping tailwind, just wanting to put it on some hyzer, hopefully put myself close to the basket. Now, in the moment, I was pretty nervous about that shot because there is hazard that lines both the left and right side. I'm asking kind of people in the pavilion since both 9 and 18 play up to it, whether they thought I was safe or not, but we didn't get a call. Stepping up to it, luckily I am safe with another putt that is that headwind right to left putt, my favorite thing to putt in. So trying to be a little more confident about this one. Step up, commit again, and put it in the heart of the chains. Not super happy there with my effort. Just inside the circle again, though, that 25 to 30 foot range. Joel there is parked. I'm not even thinking about that at that point, though. Just a great shot with this Firebird. I just wanted to mention that. And that still leaves us with a little bit of a headwind comebacker, but we're able to knock that down without too much difficulty and move into hole number 10. Trying again to shoot pretty decent on this back 9. Putt right now is not feeling confident, and every one of those that I miss makes it feel less and less confident, compounded by the fact that I haven't practiced putting and don't expect myself to be super good at putting at the moment. Quick score update moving into the back 9. I am 1 back of Joel Freeman and 2 back of Joe Revere. They're both 4 down through the front, and I'm 3 down, so that putt would have had me keep pace with them. So as long as I'm able to keep pace on this back 9 and my throws have been good, we should be able to give this one a run. Just have to make sure that I can get the putter hot somehow. Hole 10 is a 611 foot par 4 with the double mando through those trees down there. That's exactly the play that I wanted. I just threw a Firebird instead of my Ultra today because the Firebird would be able to swing a little bit farther into the headwind. I ranged to about 330 feet down there, and I was between my Calvin Destroyer and my Ricky 2-time Destroyer. There's basically a straight headwind coming off to the left, and since I'm going to be throwing into it, I decided to disc up to the Calvin Destroyer and try to keep it on a low line so that I could make the mando and hopefully park at Erilyn, my caddy. Big shout to Erilyn, big shout out to her dad and Gracelyn, the whole family for being out there, their mom, just such a great support system to have throughout this weekend. But I ripped that Calvin Destroyer on that low line, ends up really calling for this skip and getting it, and that Calvin Destroyer right now is 3 for 3 for either going in the basket or leaving me with a 1-foot putt. Feels good to get back on the birdie train on the back 9. Hole number 11 is a 963 foot par 5. Massive hole. Yesterday, I really failed to turn my disc over, so I'm really trying to practice what my body language is going to be to get that disc to move up from the left to the right. There is a left to right wind in this one, so I'm a little more confident about that. I just really don't want to get pinched off from the mando again. So I'm taking my EchoStar Destroyer and really trusting it, trying to give it a little bit of height. I end up throwing a little bit lower than I might have wanted to, and it's going to get pushed into the ground, but it leaves me with a really simple straight shot to get through that mando with a really good opportunity to get up and down for the birdie on this one, which would be a great birdie to get. I don't think it's too crazy hard, but you have to get in position off the first shot. Second shot here, I don't really have much of a run up because I have a hill that I have to climb, so I kind of get up there, a little quarter run up, end up throwing my EchoStar Destroyer again with a left to right wind, and I threw it a little bit higher than I might have wanted. It leaves me in the right part of the fairway though, which is that slightly left side, so that I can try to miss left and give myself a nice look in for the birdie. Now this is a pretty difficult upshot here because you see the basket there. It's only about 290 feet away. I could try to go through kind of the straight gap there, but anything that I hit is going to leave me about 70 to 80 feet short. So I'm deciding to go with my Calvin Destroyer on a turnover forehand. Unfortunately, I drop my shoulder as I swing through that, and it comes out of my hand flat instead of on any amount of turn. I thought it hit a tree and leave me with an open look. Unfortunately, it hits nothing, and that right side is absolute jail. I did think that I got the distance right, and luckily when I'm able to walk up there, I did absolutely get the distance right. However, unfortunately, I am in the middle of a swamp. Just casual relief, but it would put me back about 90 feet further from where I'm at, and I have a semi-open look from my Destroyer. So you can't take your shoes off and throw a disc. It's illegal, I think, for the PDGA rules based on the dress code. So I kind of get in the water, and I am super soaked in there, basically up to my ankle, have a step putt at the basket to try to save the birdie, which would be a great save after a pretty poor third shot. Don't tell anyone that I told you this, but that might be the start of a specific type of saga that we don't like here on the channel.
It still did it. I thought I made it for a second, but the water slowed me down.
But we're able to tap in for the 5. A little frustrated that we weren't able to take the birdie because we wanted to continue pushing in this position, but hole number 12 is a birdie hole, so we should be able to take that too. I decided to throw again through the same gap that I threw through yesterday. I did have to change my socks though, and luckily I was smart enough to bring another change of socks because I had to get in that crappy water. I'm decided to throw the honor again. There is a slight right to left, so maybe I should have just down to a Firebird, but I hit the gap, throw it a little bit high, and throwing a really good shot and giving myself another inside the circle chance. And that's all I need. I need these chances. Let's just start knocking them down, starting with this putt from about 25 feet. And this is where things can start to get a little interesting, because if my putt is not feeling confident and I don't have the kind of the mechanical practice to really feel confident about it, things can start to get a little bit bad. We're able to tap that in for a par, but that's 2 birdies in a row, arguably, that I should have missed, including a couple more, and we're now neg 3 putting. So circle 1 putts that definitely should have gone in. We could be at 21 down, and that would still be very much a contention for the tournament, but there are plenty more birdie holes to get. Let's just make sure that we get them, starting with hole number 13, a 554 foot par 4. I'm throwing my EchoStar Destroyer again, and there's even more of a right to left than yesterday, so I'm going to try to put it on that same hyzer line just inside and leave it out to the left with the wind. Unfortunately, I leave it very right, and it pinches me off kind of straight behind the tree that I got into yesterday. I don't know if you can tell, but I definitely feel like I've been throwing less powerful in these shots, and I think you can tell just based on the speed that the disc is coming out of my hand. Leaves me with about 250 in, so I'm between Firebird and Ultra. Luckily, it's a very grabby ground, so as long as I put the Ultra at the base of the basket, we should be pretty happy, and it's a relatively routine just pushing hyzer out there. So we're going to go ahead and throw the Ultra instead of the Firebird. Out of my hand, I feel like it is absolutely perfect. Just gonna swing back towards the basket, maybe a little bit outside, but it hits a weird pipe thing and bounces 20 feet back from the basket compared to where it had landed. So a little bit unfortunate there, but still leaves me another inside the circle look for the birdie. Another one that I definitely need to be making basically every single time that I play disc golf. And this is just a testament to make sure that you're practicing putting. But at this point, there are 5 holes left. I know that I still am hanging on to 3rd place. Shouldn't be too big of an issue. Just need to make sure that I close out with a couple more birdies and don't make any big mistakes. And so here I'm throwing my Echo Star Destroyer basically into a headwind left to right. I knew I'd flip it up a little bit, but keep it relatively safe on a 622-foot par 4. Just basically have to get down there, and as long as you don't throw it 500 feet, you're not going to be OB. It leaves me 250 into the basket, which is an interesting distance. I just threw Ultra on that distance, but here I'm going to decide to throw Firebird. I misspoke a second ago about the wind. It's actually a right to left headwind, and so the Firebird, this forehand play, is definitely the play. I leave it a little bit lower than I wanted, a little more driven instead of high and hyzery, but it hits right next to the basket, just skips another 10 feet past, and at that point, seeing that I'm going to have to make another 20-25 foot putt, maybe closer to 30 feet, is starting to scare me a little bit. Really, again, big shout out to my caddy, Erilyn, and that whole family just for continuing to believe in me and having more faith in me than I did a lot of times myself. Knew that I could step up here and drill this putt, trying to make sure that I roll my shoulders back a little bit and give myself the height, bend the legs, and put it in the chains. Unfortunately, again, I just hit the cage, and this is kind of a little bit of the last straw for me. I'm about to not necessarily lay down. I just ball up a little bit, watch everybody else tap in their birdies, and kind of am a little frustrated at this point, not because I'm not really in contention for the win or for second or whatever, more so because I know that this is not my potential. But I realized right after this that a lot of it was that if you will go back and watch that putt, I'm not cocking my wrist when I go down. So my spin is barely only being generated by my fingertips instead of me cocking my wrist and using a little bit of wrist action as well. So I'm definitely going to have to continue practicing that and just make that a little bit more natural. Moving us into hole number 15, 667-foot par 4. Another pretty gimme par 4. All these 3 par 4s in a row should easily be gettable. And this one, I'm going to throw my Faro because it's a tailwind, just on a slight bit of hyzer, hoping to flip it up. But I leave it nose up. And at this point, I'm confused because my driving has been so good and my putting has been so atrocious. And this one, I think I just make the wrong decision. There's so much room out there to the right that if I just throw a turnover, it'll be all right. But I decided to try to throw a hyzer flip with my Faro that is like just right and the nose angle is right. And I just absolutely got it wrong. Straight OB. This leaves us with a nice up and down with the Firebird that we can get, just trying to push it around those trees. But a little bit of an inside release from me barely keeps it in bounds and leaves me with another putt that I'm going to need to make, probably again just inside the circle to save the par. And at this point, I know if I continue making these mistakes, 3rd place can be gone. I still have it right now, and there shouldn't be any issue with that. I just need to make sure that I hold on to it, don't make any more mistakes, and get another couple birdies on the last 3 holes because they are gettable. Like hole 17 stuff, but... And this brings Jordan Whistler into play. Big shout out to Jordan. We actually did a little bit of a practice round together. Great guy here. California guy, but now he's in Colorado. And he's been putting together a phenomenal round. And so that was a hole that he birdied. I bogeyed, bringing us to tied. And this is when I started to check scores, was after hole 15. And that was one of the things that I was looking at is I knew that I was probably out of contention because Joe was making putts and I didn't remember how to make any putts in the world. Joe was not having the most phenomenal round, but he was still ahead of me. And me and Jordan were tied now. So I throw my Star Destroyer around the Mando. This is a hole that you could play for eagle, but it is basically straight into a headwind today. So you probably need about 2 500-foot shots instead of 2 normally 440-foot shots. And I can probably do the 440s, but definitely not the 500. So with the Star Destroyer, I'm really needing to play this one for birdie because Jordan has a lot more power than me. And this is one of the important things about playing in the wind and why having power is so important, because when you can throw far, you can just mash on overstable discs and still get normal distance with overstable discs, like normal me distance, which is just a mere mortal. And so I knew that this is a hole that he could potentially get for eagle, but would be very difficult. And now it's kind of turning into a little bit more match play here. But for me, I know it's going to be birdie, par, birdie, and that'll help me to close it out because hole 17 is a very difficult birdie. So I range it to about 215 feet, which for me is going to be a zone because it's a little bit of a headwind left to right. Jordan's in a position where he may be able to eagle. He's 80 feet from the basket. I just need to put this zone close by and then make an easy putt. Unfortunately, I leak it a little bit to the right, hits the branches. It was probably going to sit down a little bit long and actually leave me with a tailwind putt, but I'm not mad that it for sure sat down and it left me with about a 20-foot headwind putt where I really just needed to, at this point, since I'm checking scores, buck up and make a freaking putt already. Feels so good to finally put one of those in the heart of the chains. I'm so stoked about it. And that moves us into hole number 17, which is the hardest birdie on the course, more than likely. It's 470 feet straight down there. There is a slight tail, but it's almost exclusively right to left wind at this point, as you can see on the flags. Jordan is inbounds, but I'm kind of wanting to push it a little bit, but have it be safe. So I ripped my Echo Star Destroyer, honestly not as hard as I could, probably should have thrown it a little bit harder, and I thought that that shot was screwed. It gets the luckiest skips ever because there is tall grass and short grass down there, and I thought I was exclusively going to be hitting the tall grass because we watched some other people have some just really bad breaks. It somehow skips back in bounds, and I am safe with a look for the birdie. I mean, you can see it there out of my hand, just slightly nose down and a little bit left. I really can't be mad about that. I'm basically smiling about that on the inside because I had a look for the birdie on a hole that I thought for sure was going to be bogey at best, moving us into hole number 18. And Jordan and I are all tied up. We are both at 18 down. And there's a Mando left here that we have to hit. I'm throwing my Star Destroyer. There's a basically big pushing left to right wind, and I just leave it a little bit flat. And it's a very, very tight OB up there. Joel thought I was safe. Get the red flag. I thought I was OB out of my hand, just threw it a little bit too straight, and I know that Jordan was in bounds, so he basically has to make a mistake and knock it up and down, and I have to get up and down for the par and hope that he either misses a putt or throws OB. Otherwise, I'll lose my podium spot, unfortunately, basically because he's having a scorcher of a round. Now, I'm reading 280 feet on my rangefinder straight to the basket, slightly uphill. There's OB right and left on both of those mounds, so I decide, because it's a tailwind, to throw my Gold Line Pure, a straight disc on a touch of hyzer, basically just touching the right side of OB and having it fade slightly towards the basket. I leave it a little bit high since it's a putter because I wanted to get the distance, but the tailwind just helped to push it. I skipped right underneath the basket, a decent upshot, but as you can tell by kicking the ground, I'm not super stoked about it because I know it's going to leave me with a very long putt as the comeback, or at least long for my standards today based on everything that I've been missing. Jordan does put it inside the circle, and so I'm first to putt, needing to make this and then having him miss a 20-footer in order to make sure that I keep my third place. But I can't double bogey because if I double, there's another player on the card, Paul, who is right behind me. He was 3 strokes back at the beginning of this hole, but this could be a 3-stroke swing because he's also inside the circle with a difficult lie. But if he makes that putt and I 3-putt, I take 5th place instead of 4th. And at this point, at a B tier, it's a decent bit of money that we're going to have to worry about. Now, at this point, too, I am putting back into a headwind with the right to left. I range it to 38 feet, asking the card, really wanting to step putt this to feel confident about it. But I'm also not crazy confident about the putt, so I'm not wanting to give myself a massive comebacker. Unfortunately, I just completely airballed it. I was aiming a little bit right side and pulled it very right side. Definitely need to work on aim points with circle 2s, and it leaves me with about a 20-foot comebacker, literally just inside the lie of Jordan, who ends up making his putt. Paul putts before me, and he ends up making his putt, so I know stepping up to this that I need to put this in to keep 4th place. A little bit high out of the hand, do end up taking 4th place. 4 bogeys on the scorecard and 6 missed circle 1 putts. Massive thank you to Brandon for running the tournament, How the West was won. Big congratulations to Joel for the win, and the biggest thank you to the Eastmans, especially Erilyn, for being my caddy for the weekend. I could not have done it without you. Also, real quick before we get into my final thoughts, big shout out to Greg, Arctic Cats Disc Golf on YouTube and Instagram. He got another angle of the ace. Let's check it out.
All right, main takeaway, wear the Frisbee Club shirt. No, I'm just kidding. Main takeaway, practice putting. I haven't looked at the footage back yet. I'm disappointed, obviously. And I'm proud of the fact that I didn't let that disappointment sink in until after the round. After the round was over, I took that bogey, I made that last putt, almost missed it. I allowed myself to feel the feelings that I've been holding back for the whole round. And that pressure was something that was such an exhilarating thing to experience. I mean, it sucks that I couldn't even hold on the podium. Big shout out to Jordan for freaking beating me on that hot round of the day. So I'm not mad about it. If he would have just shot an okay round and he still got me, I would have been a little pissed. But fourth in my third MPO tournament with the field with a couple 10-30 guys, I'm pretty happy with. Definitely not happy with this round. And if I would have made all my circle one putts today, even though I went OB 3 times, if I would have made all those circle one putts, I think I would have been second. No, I would have been tied with Joel. Because I missed 6 circle one putts. I would have tied Joel. We know what I need to work on for the next tournament. I have a lot of work to get done around the house. I appreciate you guys so much for watching. Crazy round. First tournament ace. Just nuts. Thanks for following the journey. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Still 961 rated is what it's at right now. It might round down. I'm not 100% sure. It wasn't a good round, but for having another bad round to be in the 960s, pretty happy. So over 1,000 rated for the tournament. Really stoked on that. This is how much I will have cashed. I don't even know yet. I have to probably check that or maybe even text the TD so we can put it all together after fees and everything. If you want to check out the first round, it was electric. I played so hot. Check it out right down there. If you want to not do that, then don't. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, love you guys.